Hey, hope you're doing well. It's Jeremy McCullen, McCullen Knives. Today I'm going to do a short little video of me doing some maintenance to one of my knives. Actually going to be this knife right here. It's a ABL 64 HRC 70 thou blade stock. It's about 10 thou behind the edge right now. I was using this knife the other day, cutting open these liquid nail construction adhesive tubes. Now, there's not much to these ends here, but when you actually cut into the tube itself, that's fairly thick, heavy plastic. And I wasn't getting the cutting performance that I wanted, and a big part of that was I've got a heavier edge angle on this than the knife needs. So I need to lower the edge angle. Last week, I did a short video on Instagram and Facebook about where I had lowered the edge angle on this paramilitary here. And the comment I made was that when you have a knife, you need to be able or be prepared to adjust things like the edge angle to meet your cutting needs. Now, this being ABL, it can take, with the steel properties, it can take a fine edge at a lower edge angle and have a fairly stable edge. The knife's just like it was last week when I was cutting those tubes, and you can see it's still nice and sharp, so there's no damage to the knife. It's just I need to lower the edge angle. Now when I lower this edge angle, I'm going to do it by hand. I'm going to do it on stones, and I'll show you the process. I'm actually going to use some stones that I never use just because I know it's something that's fairly common for some people. I use bench stones all the time. Can't see it from here. My grinder's over there. I'm not using the grinder for this type of work. But I'm going to use some Gatco diamond stones, and I'll show you how I'm going to use them. I'm actually going to put them in a vise. So I'm going to use them just like a bench stone. But I know a lot of people have sharpening systems like this, and again, I don't use these. I've got lots of sharpening systems and stones I don't use, but since I know that's a common stone that people have, I'm going to use that today. I'll lower the edge angle, and then I'm actually going to clean the blade up. A lot of people, they've got a kind of an aversion about scratching their knives up. If you use a knife, it's going to get scratched. But in this case, I'm going to scratch the knife up, and then I'm going to clean it up and kind of show that process. Now, when you have a finish like this is a 320 grit hand rub finish. It makes it a whole lot easier to clean the finish back up than, say, a knife like this paramilitary that's got a vertical finish from the factory. But anyway, bear with me. I'll get things set up and we'll go through the process. And as I go through the process, I'll show you the materials that we're using. Okay, so I've got the medium diamond stone in my bench vise here. Got the knife. I've got simple green. I'm using simple green, not using oil. I'm not WD-40, whatever you want, but I'm using simple green. And just for kind of demonstration purposes, I've got a black Sharpie here. So one of the things people do when they sharpen a knife sometimes is they'll mark the edge angle so that when they're sharpening, you can see, the lighting's not great, sorry about that. But when they're sharpening, they can look at the Sharpie. That might be more aggressive than I want. And they can sit there and see where they're cutting. And I can see that I'm on the bevel. So I'm cutting. So what I want to do is I'm going to take the Sharpie and I'm going to actually bring it up on the blade. Now, I'm not planning on going this high. All right, so I have brought the Sharpie up onto the blade. And now when I go to adjust my edge angle, I can look and I can see that I actually am cutting above where that edge actually is. So I'm going to work both sides, and this stone feels fairly aggressive, so I'm not going to have to work too hard, I don't think. All right, now get this where you can see. Now you can see that how that's getting, that brightness is starting to come up the edge. So I'm going to continue working this until I've got this edge angle lowered and all the way down. So I'll come back again. It'll be on both sides. No secrets here, no mysticism, just my hands and the stone. What edge angle? I don't know. It's going to be lower. And then when I use the knife again, if I think I don't have the cutting performance I want, then I will actually lower the edge again. Now if I use this knife and I get edge damage, say cutting that same material again, then I'll know that I've actually got the edge thinner than it needs to be. At that point in time, I'll resharpen the knife and I'll put a thicker or steeper edge angle on there. And you can adjust that until you find that happy medium where you're getting the best performance you can get without getting damage. Or, if you get damage, what type of damage are you getting? Is it blowing the edge out? Are you getting little chips? Again, it depends on what you're looking for and the damage. You're looking at happy medium. I want to be able to cut those daily materials like that plastic there without having damage, but with as much cutting performance as possible. So you can see where I'm already bringing that up. So I'll get this finished as far as bringing the edge down, and then we'll go into edge cleanup. We'll clean the knife up and get it looking pretty again. And as a knife owner, all these things you can do for yourself. All right, you can see I have adjusted, and the light's horrible, sorry, the edge angle. See, I've scratched the blade up. The adjusted edge angle, I went ahead and, I didn't do a full flat. I just brought, because this is such a thin knife anyway, adjusted the edge angle, brought it up, and then I also blended in that new shoulder that I created. All right, so what we're going to need to refinish the knife is I've got Rhino wet paper. I shouldn't need it because I started with a medium stone, but there's 120 grit Redline Rhino wet. I've got 220 and 320. I'll start with the 320 just to see how deep of the scratch I actually put in the knife. If the 320 doesn't touch it, then I'll just start dropping down an abrasive. My thing today, I don't want to drop down the abrasive too much because I'm creating more work. You don't want to have abrasives a lot heavier than the actual scratches you put in the blade. So since I started off with a medium diamond stone, and I'm not sure what that actual grit is, hopefully the 320 will get me back to where I want to be, which is 320 is what I'm going to end up with. So also I've got Sandflex medium. It's a hand block. It's an abrasive block, and that actually will clean the finish back up after the sandpaper. And this is a piece of silicone. This is a piece of horse stall mat, which I'll use. I'm not going to a hard back sanding block, which I would if I was typically sanding a knife. Since I'm just touching that edge back up, hopefully I can go to the soft back sanding blocks, which are actually my finishing blocks, instead of going to a hard back block like this. But if the scratches are too deep and the soft back blocks won't do it, then I may have to actually drop down to a hard back block. And you can use whatever hard square material you've got. I actually use this some. This is Jaws to a can't think of it right now, but basically it's a little blade vise. for sanding block. Anyway, I'll get the knife set up. I'm gonna wrap the handle up just to protect the handle. It's got a nice mango handle on here. I'll get it wrapped up, and then I'm gonna secure it to my sanding table here, which is in the vise. And you can use whatever you want to use table wise. Just remember, you're using still a live edge. Now, I've lost sharpness and I'm gonna have to resharpen this edge, but this still would cut you. So you have to be very careful doing this. It is dangerous. So let me get the knife set up, and I'll start the process on the camera, show you what I'm doing, and then I'll finish it and show you the finished knife. All right, so I've got some 320, and this is the horse stall mat. Again, I'm gonna use the Simple Green as my liquid. And I'm gonna start and just see, and I'm staying on the edge side. Watch your fingers. And I'm gonna see where that takes me. And I can already tell by looking at this that I shouldn't have to drop down from the 320. I think I'll be able to do everything with the 320, because it looks like that is actually taking the scratches that the stone put in there. Now, what I didn't tell you a while ago is when I went from the medium stone to the fine stone to help remove some of the medium scratches. You always want to try to work smarter, not harder. It's hard enough doing some of this stuff sometimes. Now, this is not a hard process. It's just a process. And I'm not worried about getting everything even finish wise. As I get the scratches out, then I'll start sanding this properly to get the finish even again. So I'm gonna cut the camera off, get back to this, and then we'll get you to see the finished knife. All right, real quick, and I'll give you a close-up of the knife in a minute. There's the knife. It's finished, sharpened. It's been sharpened on a 600 grit easy lap. Not going to talk about sharpening. If you want to see some really good sharpening videos, check out Joe Calton, Calton Cutlery. It's Calton, C-A-L-T-O-N, YouTube, Joe Calton, and he's got some really good videos on using bench stones to sharpen knives. But anyway, it took me about 15 minutes, taking my time to clean it back up after I had lowered the edge angle, and to sharpen it. All right, so here's the knife. And cleaned up and sharpened. Went ahead and cleaned the handle up too. It's always a good idea. I think this is stabilized, but I use food grade mineral oil. So whenever the handle gets wet, like using that Simple Green a while ago, good idea to clean the handle up and oil it. I went ahead and measured the cutting edge, and the main cutting edge is 1/6 thou behind the main cutting edge, and the tip I left a little thicker at 10 thou. And you have to remember, this is 70 thou stock, so lean anyway. But when you get a knife and you use it and you decide it doesn't cut like you want to cut it, or like you want it to cut, one of the things you can address is how thick the edge is and the edge angle. So I went to stones, dropped the edge angle, also thinned the edge a little bit, and then cleaned it up. So hope you're all doing well, and hope this helps. Take care.